In a quiet town called Eldora, where the morning started with birdsong and the smell of fresh bread from the corner bakery, lived a young woman named Lillian. She was 24, a school teacher with a kind heart and a soft smile that could calm even the loudest child in her class. Lillian lived in a small guest house behind the main home of the Otieno family. Her landlord, Mr. Otieno, was polite but distant. His wife, Mrs. Otieno, was the kind of woman who believed in traditions, especially when it came to her only son, Brian. Brian was 27, confident but gentle. He had recently returned from studying abroad and now worked for a growing tech company in the city. Most people saw him as ambitious and well-mannered, but Lillian saw something else, something deeper, something warm. Their paths crossed in the most ordinary ways, at the gate, during deliveries, or by accident in the garden. It was in those small, quiet moments that something began to grow. It started with smiles, then small talk, then something neither of them could ignore. "You always read by the garden," Brian said one evening, leaning over the fence. "What's the book today?" Lillian looked up, a little shy. "It's a novel about a girl who's afraid to fall in love." Brian chuckled. "Is she still afraid?" "Not by the end," Lillian replied. "But it takes her a while to trust her heart." And just like that, their story began. They started seeing each other more often at the community library, during neighborhood events, and in hidden corners of the park. But it wasn't easy. Their love had to remain a secret. Not because they were ashamed, but because Mrs. Otieno would never approve. She had plans for Brian, big ones. She often reminded him that he needed a woman who came from a family of high status, someone polished, someone worthy of his future. To her, Lillian was just a tenant, a teacher, not enough. But Brian didn't care about all that. He saw Lillian's heart, not her background. He admired her patience, her quiet strength, and the way she cared for her students like they were her own. Still, the secret weighed on them. They couldn't walk hand in hand down the street, couldn't sit together at family events, couldn't post a single photo online. Every stolen moment felt beautiful and dangerous. Only one person knew the truth: Cynthia, Lillian's best friend and fellow teacher. She had watched the story unfold from the start. "Are you sure, Lillian?" she asked one day. "Hiding something like this can break a heart." "I'm already in too deep," Lillian confessed. "I love him, and I know he loves me too." Cynthia nodded. "Then hold on, but be ready for the storm." One evening, Brian's cousin Derek came to stay for the holidays. He was smart and sharp-eyed. He noticed the way Lillian and Brian exchanged looks, the quiet tension between them. One night, he pulled Lillian aside. "I'm not blind," he said. "You and Brian, it's more than just casual talk, right?" Lillian stayed silent. "I won't say anything," Derek continued. "But trust me, if his mother finds out the wrong way, things will explode." Lillian thanked him, but her heart was already uneasy. A few days later, she was called to the main house. Mrs. Otieno offered her tea and spoke calmly. "You've been a good tenant, Lillian," she said, "but I need to ask, are you involved with my son?" Lillian froze. Her hands trembled. "No, ma'am," she said. "We're just neighbors." Mrs. Otieno studied her for a long moment, then gave a cold smile. "Good, because my son deserves more than just a school teacher." Lillian nodded, then left, her eyes blurred with tears. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her heart felt bruised. Her love felt like a burden. The next morning, she met Brian beneath the mango tree at the edge of the park, the place where their story truly bloomed. "Your mother knows," she said softly. Brian sighed. "What did she say?" "That I'm not enough." He took her hand. That's not true. You're more than enough for me. I'll tell her. It's time. But life had other plans. It was raining the night it happened. Brian was on his way to speak at a tech seminar when a motorbike swerved and hit him near the crossroads. The news spread fast. Lillian rushed to the hospital, heart pounding. She found Mrs. Otieno already there, eyes red but full of pride. "You shouldn't be here," she snapped. But Lillian walked past her and into the room. Brian was awake, weak but breathing. When he saw her, he smiled, barely. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. She took his hand, tears falling freely. "I thought I lost you," she said. Behind her, Mrs. Otieno watched through the glass. For the first time, her eyes softened. After the accident, everything felt different. Brian was home now, recovering slowly. His movements were limited, but his heart had never been clearer. Each morning, Lillian passed by the gate and caught a glimpse of him through the curtain. A small wave, a tired smile. Mrs. Otieno no longer said much. Her silence wasn't cold anymore, but cautious. She had seen the love in her son's eyes. She had seen the way Lillian had rushed to his side without hesitation. Something had shifted, but it wasn't acceptance, not yet. A week later, Lillian received an unexpected message. "Please come to the house. I'd like to speak to you." "Mrs. Otieno?" Lillian took a deep breath and walked into the main living room. She sat quietly as the older woman poured tea. No bitterness, no anger, just silence. Then came the words Lillian never expected. "You love him," Mrs. Otieno said, her voice quiet. "Yes," Lillian replied, "with all my heart." "And he loves you," she continued. "I may not understand it, I may not agree with it, but I saw the way he looked at you in that hospital bed. I saw the way you stayed by his side." She looked out the window. "Maybe status isn't everything." Lillian held her breath. Her chest felt heavy and full at the same time. "I'm not promising anything," Mrs. Otieno added, "but I won't fight it anymore." It wasn't an embrace, it wasn't full approval, but it was a door, slightly open. Word spread slowly. Brian was seen walking beside Lillian on the street. They were spotted in town, sharing a coffee. No longer hiding, just being together. The whispers returned, but they weren't all cruel. Some said, "She must be special for him to stand by her." Others said, "They look truly happy." And that mattered more than anything. One evening, Cynthia visited Lillian's small cottage with a bag of sweets and her usual teasing smile. "So, you're public now?" Lillian laughed. "Not exactly on the front page, but yes." Cynthia hugged her tight. "I'm proud of you. You didn't walk away." The Otienos hosted a small Sunday lunch for close relatives. It was the first time Lillian was invited to sit at the main table. Her heart thumped in her chest as she walked into the dining room. Eyes turned. Conversations paused, but Brian walked up, took her hand and said, "Everyone, this is Lillian. She's not just my guest, she's my partner." Silence followed, then nods, then quiet chatter resumed. It wasn't thunderous applause, but it was peace. Not everyone accepted it. Brian's aunt, Aunt Monica, pulled him aside that evening. "You're making a mistake," she said. "She doesn't belong in this circle." Brian met her eyes calmly. "Love doesn't ask permission, Aunt Monica. It just happens. And I'm not walking away from her." Just when things began to settle, Angela reappeared, Brian's old classmate and his mother's former favorite choice. She came with smiles and charm, talking about business and mutual friends. Mrs. Otieno lit up around her. Lillian, seeing the connection, felt a sudden wave of insecurity. That night, she asked Brian, "Do you ever wonder, what if she had been the one?" Brian turned to her, gently touching her cheek. If I ever wondered, I wouldn't be here with you. You are my heart, Lillian. She smiled, but the doubt didn't vanish completely. A few days later, Lillian wrote a letter, not because she was leaving, but because she needed to say the things her voice sometimes couldn't. I never expected to fall in love behind someone else's house. I never thought a man like you would look at me the way you do. I have doubted myself, feared rejection, and battled silence. But I have never once doubted this love. I want us to walk, but I need to know it's not just me holding on. She didn't give it to him. Not yet. She just kept it, tucked between the pages of her favorite book. 1 week later, Brian took her on a simple walk through the park. The sun was setting. The path was quiet. He stopped near the bench where they first sat together. I know we fought hard for this, he said. I know there were days it felt impossible, but I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Lillian, will you be my wife? She froze. Tears filled her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Lillian said yes, not just to the ring, not just to the proposal. She said yes to the journey, to love with all its complications. From that day, life didn't magically become easier, but it became fuller. They started planning, not a grand wedding in a 5-star hotel, but something small, intimate, honest. They chose a countryside venue outside Imara, a peaceful place surrounded by hills and trees. The sky stretched wide and the birds always sang in the morning. Lillian traveled back to her childhood home, where her parents lived humbly but with dignity. Her mother, Mama Ruth, wore a faded kitten dress and a hopeful smile. Lillian held her hand and whispered, Mama, he asked me to marry him. Tears welled in Mama Ruth's eyes. Does he love you the way you deserve? More than I ever imagined, answered Lillian. Her father, silent but present, simply nodded. Then come home when it's time. We will be there. As the wedding approached, one question lingered in Lillian's heart. Would Mrs. Otieno show up? Would she sit at the front row, proud, or stay away in silence? Brian tried to reassure her. My mother is stubborn, he said, but she's watching. She sees us now. Give her time. But time was running out, said Lillian. 3 days before the wedding, Lillian heard a knock on her door. It was Mrs. Otieno. Dressed in a calm grey dress, she stood in silence for a moment before speaking. I received the invitation, she said. Lillian stayed quiet. I wasn't sure I would come. I wasn't sure I could. Then her voice cracked. But I saw the way he smiles now. I haven't seen that since he was a boy. She stepped forward. I'm not perfect, Lillian. I may never be the woman's mother-in-law. But if you'll have me at your wedding, I'd like to be there. Lillian's eyes filled with tears. She stepped forward and embraced her. Wedding day. The sun rose gently over Imara. Soft petals lined the aisle. Friends, family, teachers from Lillian's school, colleagues from Brian's startup, even Cynthia in a vibrant peach dress, all gathered under the open sky. Brian stood at the altar in a light grey suit. His eyes searched the crowd, then landed on Lillian. Walking down the aisle, she wore a simple white gown, no diamonds, no veil, just elegance and truth. Every step she took told a story of late night tears, of secret park benches, of silent courage. When she reached him, he took her hand. The officiant smiled. Brian and Lillian, your love wasn't born from ease. It was born from choice, from the strength to love, even when the world said no. They exchanged vows, not scripted, just honest. Brian said, you were my quiet place in the chaos. Lillian said, you were the hand I didn't know I needed. Then came the kiss, not rushed, not dramatic, just right. As the crowd cheered, Mrs. Otieno wiped a tear and smiled softly, really smiled, for the first time. That night, under string lights and soft drums, they danced, barefoot on grass, surrounded by laughter and music. Cynthia led a train of bridesmaids. Derek brought his mischief. Aunt Monica didn't say much, but she clapped when they cut the cake. And in one corner, Mama Ruth danced with her husband, quietly proud. Later, when the music softened and the guests had gone, Lillian and Brian sat under the stars. No more hiding, no more whispers. Just a man and a woman who chose each other every day, every storm, every silence. Lillian leaned her head on his shoulder. Was it all worth it? Brian kissed her forehead. More than I'll ever be able to explain. And as the stars blinked above us, their story, once secret, became a love remembered not for how it began, but for how it survived and how it bloomed